From your United States Air Force Band, this is the Connection Series, a podcast that examines the intersections of the military, music, and storytelling. I'm your host, Master Sgt. Brooke Emery. This episode features an interview with an airman we at the band consider part of our family. It's Master Sergeant Sean Christian, who's headed the Marketing and Advertising Division at Air Force Recruiting Service Headquarters for the past 3 years. Under his leadership, the band has partnered with the Air Force Recruiting Service for some of our organization's most high-impact, high-visibility performances to date, including national anthem performances at the Daytona 500 and appearances at the Super Bowl. On the occasion of his retirement, we discuss with him what it's like to be an Air Force recruiter, the power of music in moving folks to serve, and peer into the future of Air Force recruiting with his replacement, Master Sergeant Zachary Atkinson. Sergeant Christian, congratulations on your stellar career and your retirement after so many years of service to the U.S. Air Force.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you, while we start here, maybe give us the 30-second overview of what your career has been like?
Sure. So 21 years ago, I was some kid trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. Joined the Air Force, grew up in a military family. My dad was in the Army. Grandfather was in the Air Force. So the Air Force really just called to me, and it was a no-brainer. Went straight in as a traffic management TMO. Everyone knows who TMO is. You want your household goods, they call us. And then about 2011, I had a calling to be a recruiter. I cared about the service. And, I heard an old chief say he didn't really join the Air Force until 5 or 6 years after he had, really joined. And it wasn't until I became a recruiter that I felt like that I really, really was all into the business and joined the Air Force. So the last 11 years I've been in recruiting service, as a enlisted accessions recruiter, a squadron marketer and trainer, and now finishing my career, probably the best job I've ever had, and that's headquarters marketing and advertising.
And I know, early on in your time in marketing and advertising, you kind of saw an opportunity to utilize the Air Force Band, it's some pretty high visibility events, and really create a strong connection and a strong partnership between the two organizations. Can you explain a little bit how that relationship evolved, and what made Max Impact especially a great fit for supporting those sporting events?
Sure. In between 2011 and 2014, I was an enlisted accessions recruiter out of Longview, Texas. And I remember being at an event in Kilgore, actually somewhere in Kilgore, Texas. And I was there in the other branches of the services. They were all there. And the Army brought this massive climbing wall. I think we've all seen that at some of these events, right? And they had all these things to engage with the vendors and the attendees. And I remember at that time thinking, hey, if I'm ever in the position to make a difference for recruiters from a marketing perspective, I want to see what I can do to make that change. Well, lo and behold, I became the marketer at Patrick Air Force Base for the 333rd, and my leadership really saw my passion for experiential and relationships in marketing. And music inspires people, right? Music is a place that communicates to your heart and your emotions. And when you want to get romantic, what do? You put on romantic music. When you want to get excited in the gym, what do? You put music that gets you the blood pumping, right? So music is in every single human. And if I figured if I could leverage that emotion and then bring them over to an Air Force trailer or an experience, and use the music, use the band to drive them to where I want to be, and then use our Air Force recruiting assets to build the relationship, it was a win. So my first chance of really using the Air Force Band was singing Sergeant Stacy. What's her last name again?
Holiday.
Holiday, that's right. She came down to Miami where we had this massive fitness event, and she just blew them away singing the national anthem. And every sporting event that has the national anthem, that is center stage. Everybody is watching the national anthem, and that's a great opportunity to use music and associate it with just power and in the sharp uniform and then the flyover. It's an orchestra, right? These marketing events, it's a massive orchestra, and the Air Force Band is such a vital component to that orchestra. It'd be like a movie with no background music. It's just boring, right? So without the relationship of the Air Force Band and not being able to use, the capabilities that y'all bring to the table, it would be very difficult to really get our message across. But you bring up Daytona or NASCAR, and that's probably where we leverage Max Impact the most. Between Chief Carson coming down to the championship race in Miami, and he would do the national anthem there, and then having Max Impact. But they also were able to play all weekend long on a designated stage, which was phenomenal, especially when we brought them to our Air Force National Asset. And now we had the trailer, we had the band. It was awesome. I think most people didn't want to be near us because we were the loudest, but they wanted to be near us because we draw the most people. So it was phenomenal. NASCAR hits the demographic of our influencers. It gives us a platform to communicate, gives us an opportunity to showcase what we're about with these flyovers, and it's been probably one of my best programs that I've ran. So it was a great opportunity to be able to run it.
So what is the total role of AFRS at these types of events?
Sure. To keep it quick and short, to engage, to inspire, and to recruit, right? You have to build a relationship. You have to engage with people. You can't just expect people to walk up to your recruiting booth for no reason. Now, there are those people that will. There's a lot of data out there that shows, how we're supposed to influence and educate our people. And that comes with the engaging and the inspiring piece of our mission statement. And then obviously at the very end of it is the recruit part. And that's, counseling them on job placement and how to get through MEP. So inspire, engage, recruit all day long.
Absolutely. I'm going to move on for a moment to Sergeant Atkinson. And I was wondering, Sergeant Atkinson, if you'd be willing to give the 30-second overview of your Air Force career path and the places it's taken you.
Sure, absolutely. I started out as a 19-year-old double college dropout that needed some direction and guidance. That was a major tool I used as a recruiter, is to tell young men and women, sometimes you just need somebody to tell you what to do, right, for a little while until you can figure it out by yourself. And so I signed up for that direction. Didn't really have a concern with what I did or where I went. I just needed to get out of town. And so that's what I did. I became a fuel truck driver and then eventually a diesel mechanic, specializing in pumping systems. I did that for 6 years, did 4 deployments in those first 6 years. And then I started to have a family and I decided to come in to recruiting. And I've been in recruiting for the last 11 years.
What do you see the future of Air Force recruiting looking like?
I mean, I would say, and I've heard this throughout my career, but I truly think that it's the case now, is we have the smartest Air Force that we've ever had. And fortunately for us, most of the smartest people are the ones we're putting in now because they know how to use technology. And so that's cool to see. And then the biggest focus that I see down the line, and something that I take a lot of pride in, is the diversity and that the Air Force is always focused on. Currently, the way that we do that in marketing is through our partnerships. Just to give you a few examples, we have a partnership with the HBCU, which is historically black colleges and universities. We have a partnership with Supergirl Pro, which is obviously focusing on female athletics. And so I would say, to sum it up, we'll probably, by the time I get out, probably have the most technologically sound, diverse, digitally focused Air Force that there's ever been. And just from a recruiting standpoint, over the last year during COVID, what I've seen is that recruiters specifically are learning how to do this from home. and they're learning how to take advantage of all these resources that we're giving them, and they're pretty powerful with the stuff that they're learning, and not just learning but innovating. So
Yeah, as much of as a kind of a pain as COVID was, and as much of a wrench as it threw in everybody's plans, we've been finding the same thing at the band, where it's open, it's, allowed us an opportunity to broaden ourselves and broaden our capabilities and figure out some new things, and I think stretched everybody's imagination, which has been a net positive in many ways.
Sure.
So I was thinking while you were talking about the folks that you try to reach out and connect with, that I'm in the concert band. When we tour nationally, we attract an older audience, and we, more often than not, we'll have a recruiter set up a booth, and I'll always get the question afterward from someone in their 60s or 70s asking me, like, why do you have the recruiters here? And I have to explain to them that, part of the recruiter's job is not just to hit the demographic of the actual recruit. Can you talk a little bit about that and that part of your mission?
I mean, sure. Yeah, I would say, I've only been here for 3 or 4 months, but my initial assessment of this job is that's 90% of my mission is just bringing that brand awareness to the public eye. And, everybody has an uncle, an aunt, a grandma, grandpa. As you heard Sean say, both of his father and his grandfather served. And I think those are the people that we're trying to always reach and portray like a positive image of the United States Air Force and the Department of Defense, whatever you want to call it. That's pretty much the job of AFRS marketing. So
I wanted to ask you both before we go, and I'll start with Sergeant Christian. If there's one thing you wish folks knew about the job of an Air Force recruiter in the field, what would that be?
I don't know if there's enough time. I don't care who you are, you're the chief of staff, the chief master sergeant of the Air Force. If you've worn an Air Force uniform, you have talked to an Air Force recruiter, right? And the Air Force recruiter is so busy. They are a one-stop shop place. You go into their office, if you can catch them in their office, obviously, let's say pre-COVID. If they're not in the office, that means they're engaging with the community. They're also the logistics officer of every single person they're putting into the Air Force. They're making sure that those applicants get to the MEPS on time. They're making sure that they're properly briefed. They are a first sergeant on steroids to make sure that every single person in their program is taken care of. And I bliss is hindsight, right? So I would say my first year as a recruiter was horrible. I don't know any recruiter that says, "Oh, I loved it." It's probably one of the hardest jobs I've ever done, but it's also the most rewarding job that I've ever done. So I would encourage people, give a recruiter a little slack. He's super, lots of pressure, and that recruiter loves the Air Force. That recruiter is doing everything they can to provide a service. And I'm going to look back in a few years and still think it's probably one of the best jobs I've ever done in the Air Force. So,
how about you, Sergeant Atkinson?
I always I like to make sure people know that these recruiters were once civilians. I always put myself, think of myself, obviously, because I know myself the best, but just that these recruiters were once maybe 19-year-old college dropouts, right? They all have a story. And, there's horror stories out there about recruiters, but I can tell you that the majority of recruiters that I've trained, that I've come across, that I've met, they have good intentions, and they're proud of what they're doing, and they're proud of the lives they get to impact, whether it's putting somebody in the Air Force or, putting somebody through a booth to do a quarterback simulator. They're proud of what they're doing, and they're out there doing the right thing.
I think, it is really true. Like, nobody forgets their recruiter, and you really are in a position to change lives. Pretty amazing. If there's anything else that either of you would like to speak to, I am all ears.
Perfect. If I can add to my Max Impact family and to my band family, even the color team, you guys just made my job easy and fun and challenging and unique. And I've developed close friendships and friends that I'll have for the rest of my life. And it's a place that I can always go back to and call them and say, hey, remember when we were in Miami, or remember when we did this race and that race. And not every day, there's not a lot of people out there that love what they do. And I love what I did, and I still love what I do. And I know every band member loves what they do because their commitment to the mission and the excitement just pours out of them. And to be around that kind of elevates everybody to work at a higher standard. And for that, I'm grateful. So thank you so much for this opportunity and all the other opportunities provided.
Thanks so much for those kind words and for being here today. It really was a pleasure. And Sergeant Atkinson, thank you for your candid discussion, and good luck to you. Thank you so much for your time, for your service to our country, for your dedication to an incredibly important job in not just our Air Force, but the military as a whole. We appreciate you, and we look forward to working with you closely in the future.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me. You all have a great day.
Thanks, Zach.
Yeah, you too. Take care. This episode was produced by myself along with Master Sergeant Emily Wellington. Additional audio support was provided by Master Sergeant Mike Hampf. The executive producer of the Connection series is Colonel Don Schofield.